Hey y'all, it's your legal bestie attorney Simone, and
I am happy.
I am so happy to join you again. I'm sorry that it has taken so long. I needed a vacation, y'all. Yes, hey guys, let me know where you're joining us from, and as you do so, I'm going to be a lot more consistent. I'm going to try to do 3 to 4 shows a week. I want you guys to tell me, what do you feel would be the best time? How's my audio? Let me know if it's okay. Put a little thumbs up in there if you can hear me okay. If not, I'll make an adjustment. Okay, I see. Yes. Here we go. Yay, we got Miami, Florida watching, from Dallas, etc. Yes, so just a little update since I've been gone. I am back based in Texas, but of course, you know that I travel religiously. Great, you can see me. And I spend the month of July just kind of traveling, catching up with my friends and stuff like that. So that's what I've been doing. And y'all, I went to the Essence Festival and I had a great time. Last week I did a video on the Essence Festival, and make sure you let me know below, what time do you think of the day? Right now it is actually, if you're watching us live, it is 3 p.m. Central, but I was thinking of doing, trying to be more consistent, closer to like 10 a.m. so y'all could listen while you're at work and then share it with your besties and so forth throughout the day. So let me know what you think of that. And here's what we've got on the docket. We have Diddy goes to rehab. Surprise there. Nicki Minaj and the real reason for her beef with Jay-Z. Is she really owed $200 million, or is there more to it? You know, I'll always be coming with the receipts and explaining when there's more to it. As well. Then we've got also Jay-Z and the paternity suit. I asked, you guys responded, and so I listened, which was that I was asking, drop and let me know what topics you want me to cover. Go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat and down below. I am happy to update, as we do, as we keep going, updating topics. Someone else has asked me about the, what's this, the big guy, B.I.G., the legal issues going on between his wife and his mom. If you want that breakdown, I can give it to you as well. I just need your help because I'm getting caught up, and there's some stuff that's kind of like stale news versus some stuff where you get little sound bites, from like Shade Room or here and there, but you're not getting the real deal. So let me know about those topics. Hit that like as you come on in. And I have no idea what just happened. Sorry, guys. I'm still here. No clue what just happened there. Yeah, 10 a.m. is early, but I figured it's early, but as well, we'll get it done. All right, let's start with, let's go ahead. Let's just start with old Diddy. Let's start with Diddy. Let me see. We're going to share this other tab. Oh, of course, it knocked out everything that I had shared before. This is going to piss me off. I'm in a hotel, so I'm hopeful that the signal won't run a whole muck. But here we go. So y'all, it started. Make sure you guys can see this. There you go. So Diddy is now in domestic violence. He's in DV program in prison. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I told y'all this is going to happen. So basically, now that he has been sentenced, he's going to take these next few months from now until October 3rd, when his sentencing hearing will take place, to basically show the judge he's rehabilitated, he is not a risk for the public, So according to TMZ, TMZ gets all the tea because the founder of TMZ, Harvey, and Mark Garagos, who is Teeny's father, Teeny was one of the lead counsel for Diddy. they're besties and they have a podcast together. So TMZ gets all the tea first. Well, it says, Diddy is allegedly attempting to rehabilitate himself. He's enrolling in self-improvement programs while he is in lockup. Sources close to the situation tell TMZ Diddy is in what's called the STOP program, a course that the feds offer inmates focused on preventing SA, DV, and dating V. We're told he is undergoing therapy and is in the Dr. Harry K. Wexler substance abuse program. Our sources say Diddy is using the programs to work hard on bettering himself, and one source called it his path toward redemption. Of course, cynics might say there's a different motivation, that Diddy's federal trial featured lots of testimony about DV against Cassie and Jane, as well as his rampant use of substances. It is not uncommon for convicted individuals to enter various programs to show the judge they are serious about rehab. As we've reported, he's got sentencing coming. It says, we're told he actually started the treatment program before his arrest, and he's continued while behind bars. Fun fact, or I guess unfun fact, on average, it takes 7 stints at rehab until someone actually gets clean. Yeah, difficult to know. I knew a girl at rehab, and she wouldn't even put her name on her stuff. She would just call it rehab number 7. She was so excited that this was her 7th rehab, and she's actually doing quite good. Anyway, and Diddy has been to rehab previously before. Now, when he did so, that was around the time, like after the video came out with Cassie, allegedly. So here it is basically saying that, like, we knew that this is the play. This is what you're supposed to do to be able to get the lower end of the sentencing. The prosecutors want around 51 months to 62 months. They want that upper leverage. Now, here's the thing. This was very smart. This was very smart of his lawyers to do, because when his lawyers were seeking bail for him, and let me say, I have seen multiple posts about how unfair and ridiculous it is that they won't give Diddy bail. The law doesn't allow it. When you're convicted and you're convicted of something violent, they don't send you home. Think about that. Why are they going to send you home? So you can go beat up one of the witnesses or, beat up your ex who got you there? They don't send you home. And what's happening is people are comparing cases where a person had been out on bail all the way up until trial. So they had never been locked up, right? They've been out on bail all the way until trial. They're at trial, they get convicted, and then the judge will say, in some instances, you can go home and come back for sentencing. That's different. That's not the same as where someone has been locked up the whole time, convicted of something, admitted to violence, and then they're like, hey guys, can we go home and I'll be back in 3 more months. So that's the big difference, is that, well, correct. Shanta says he wasn't convicted of violence, right? He was convicted of transportation of prostitution, the Mann Act, right? And that is not, in and of itself, is not violent. The problem was the defense's entire theory was, this is domestic violence. This is DV. This is not RICO. It's DV. This is not S trafficking. It's DV. So the judge said you can't have it both ways. If it's DV, then sit your bottom down, because that means you have admitted to a violent act. And it doesn't matter whether the violence was the charge act. You sat up here in court and used violence to get off. Let's just think about that. Just process that. You sat up here and used violence to get off. And now you want me to send you home, but you're violent? No. So that's how come it makes perfect sense that they're now putting him in a DV program and whatever else they're going to do. It will be interesting to see sentencing. I have to say the judge throughout has been very fair and reasonable. But it'll be very interesting to see in sentencing how the judge handles and processes the fact that he literally won his charges in part by leaning on and acknowledging DV. And the judge further states that he continued to have DV instances, that it didn't end with Cassie in 2016, that there was another one with Jane in 2024 when he knew he was under investigation. Those things were at the forefront of the judge's mind at the hearing. And then finally, the fact that in the hotel, when he was arrested, substances were obtained, substances with his name on it. Well, Frank Black, his alias. So as a result, the judge is like, you haven't learned your lesson. You still have your challenges. So so the defense was great at getting him off RICO, but it looks like it's going to get him. It has made it to where the judge was like, hey, we have to keep you here until sentencing. But at the same time, they want to be able to, the defense wants to be able to get the lower end. And here's how it works. If you ever known someone, even like a divorced couple, right, when they're arguing over custody, in those instances, they do something that's generally called something like a home study, where they investigate everything about the parties to decide like who would be the better parent. Or if it's a criminal case, a traditional criminal case, like here in Diddy's, before they sentence, I actually used to do death penalty work. I used to take on death penalty cases in law school. And before they sentence, they do this deep dive into everything about the person. That's what the federal probation officers are doing now regarding Diddy. So they are going to actually interview his treatment counselors. They're going to interview his therapists. They're going to try and make a calculation or a gauge as to the likelihood he would reoffend, the dangerousness to society. So that's why when you're dealing with a federal case, especially where you're going to be sentenced, it's really great to get in these programs, because then that means your teachers, your counselors, whatever, for these programs can then be interviewed by the probation department. And hopefully, if you're doing good in the program, give you a positive recommendation. That's what he's seeking. So he'll be able to get less time. Someone said the therapist will figure him out. Oh yeah, those same therapists, like if it's a good therapist that's designated, they will tell you about all his personality disorders and stuff. I'm pretty sure this man is bipolar. And that was discussed in court. And in court, they often tried to say that his behavior, lashing out, violence, different things, that was all because he was on substances. Why am I not talking about the Epstein cover-up? Because I don't know enough about it. That's why. I don't like talking about things that I don't know about, because then I'm going to be like a lot of other channels. So I need to have more time to look into that. And I'm not there right now. I got a lot of personal problems. All right. So there we go. That's the Diddler update. Next up, Nicki. Bless her heart. We're going to switch over to this one. Baby, Nicki is on fire. Nicki is hot with Jay-Z. So I'm your legal bestie, attorney Simone. I break down celebrity cases on my YouTube channel, Girl, Is That Legal, and social media. And recently, one of the big questions I've been asked is, what is up with Nicki Minaj and Jay-Z? This argument, this Twitter debate that she's having about Jay-Z. Now, it is pretty one-sided because she's tweeting stuff and Jay-Z has not responded at all. But it all boils down to Tidal. Tidal was the streaming program that Jay-Z purchased and created in 2015. Jay-Z purchased it for $56 million from a foreign company. I believe they were like in Amsterdam or something like that. And his goal was to create a streaming service where the artists would share in the revenue. Basically, the artists would be paid more, because prior to that, they talked about, for example, Pharrell talked about, even though his song Happy had over 100 million streams, he only got like a few $1,000s. It was ridiculous. So that was the initial premise of Tidal. When Jay-Z created Tidal, he then got this core group of super big celebrities, there's 15 of them, that included Nicki Minaj, Mariah Carey, and others. And he just purely gifted them 3% shares in Tidal, 3%. They didn't have to do anything. They just had to say, hey guys, I own Tidal and Tidal's cool. So we're talking about the Tidal dispute between Nicki Minaj and Jay-Z. So again, for this 3% share, Nicki didn't have to do anything. I think she may have taken some photos with the other founders, but those founders include, like I said, Rihanna, Beyonce. Oh, and Beyonce and Nicki Minaj got the same percentage, just FYI, 3%. Rihanna, Beyonce, a number of those names. But here is what Nicki recently went off and said. So Nicki is claiming, she says, Jay-Z owes her millions of dollars from her equity in Tidal. Remember, it started off with 3%, and the company was ultimately sold in 2020, in 2021 for $300 million. However, Nicki is saying, I want y'all to follow the numbers. Nicki is saying that Nicki is owed 100 to 200 million. And she said, Jay-Z, call me to settle this karmic debt. It's only collecting more interest. You still in my top 5 though. Now, part of what made her start talking about Jay-Z is his name was in the news again because there had been some changes regarding the paternity suit, which I'm going to talk about next. The paternity suit with his alleged kid, which is Ramir Satherwhite. So Minaj then went on to say that if she received any financial compensation, she would pay it forward to help fans with their educational goals. She said, I'm going to use some of the money that Jay-Z owes me to send money to some of my barbs to college and pay their school fees and student loans on my very own hashtag student of the game charity, she said. Now, they did have a beef that initially started about the halftime show because Nicki felt that Lil Wayne should have done the halftime show in New Orleans. Many people had different views. Some people feel that Wayne is not prepared because of his substance use. He just doesn't perform the same. Anyway, Kendrick Lamar did instead. So fast forward though, going up. There was it. Okay, I don't know. Here we are. Ooh, there we go. Sorry, scrolling up. All right. So basically they were going back and forth. Oh, here's the tweet. Let me share it here. She says, we've calculated 100 to 200 million so far. Jay-Z, call me. You're still in my top 5. And anyone still calling him Hove will have to answer to, Jesus for blasphemy. Okay, girl. All right, boo. So here's the gist of really what's going on. Hit that like button too. Ooh. Somebody said, it said Rock Nation blocks her and her numbers. Okay, so that's part of why she's upset. It says, we find time for way less impactful things for some reason. Yep, he offered her only 1 million, take it or leave it. So here's the truth about that. So what happened is the valuation that he received he owned 86% at the end when it was time for the sale. These numbers matter. And this is why, unfortunately, for Nicki, I think she's got her numbers wrong. And I think she has a misunderstanding. So her 3%, she feels was worth 9 million, but she was only offered 1 million. She says she was contacted on the phone. She was told, listen, Jay-Z's going to be selling Tidal. He'll buy your shares from you for 1 million. You've got 24 hours to decide. We've got to close this deal. And she said, oh, heck no. If it's selling for 300 million and I have 3%, I should be receiving 9 million was her calculation. Here's the tea, y'all. The truth is, and I believe, and what's interesting to me is I'll say this. I'm curious if her lawyer explained what I'm about to explain to you, because I don't think that they did. Because if so, she wouldn't be going on social media trying to blast him like this. I was a finance major, right? I had a full ride on finance in addition to going to law school at Cornell. And when you're dealing with shares, there's something that's called a majority premium if you own the majority of the shares and a minority discount. Meaning if you only own a few shares, you're not going to get as much for them as if you owned a whole bunch. Think of it with Amazon. If I own one Amazon share, I'm going to get whatever the heck E-Trade is trading on at that particular moment. I'm sharing it. I'm selling it, right? I'm not going to get, if I own one share of Amazon, I'm not actually going to get the equivalent of what one millionth of Amazon is worth. But if you own Jay-Z's cases, he owned 85% at the sale. Here's how he did that. He actually went back around and he bought up shares to become a majority owner. For example, Sprint T-Mobile had owned at the time 33%. He had to go and buy shares back from them, that 33%, in order to even get the 300 million. So he didn't get all that 300 million. It doesn't just go in his pocket after he, purchased the company for 56. Of course, he invested in it. He invested quite a bit, at least 70 million of his own money. He had to do a cash infusion. He was going to have a lawsuit against Tidal, a whole bunch of stuff. So in other words, because Jay-Z went around to different people, and this is actually a nice thing for him to do. He knows that if you only own 3%, that individually, you're not going to get much for that. But what he said is, I will give you money and then I will sell all of this back to the company because they clearly want it. Otherwise, your other choice is, if you don't like my numbers, you can keep your share And then whenever you want, negotiate on your own, whatever price you want to whoever wants to buy it from you, whether it's Jack Dorsey, that's who actually did buy title, or anyone else. So she kept her shares. She hasn't been talking about. So she still has her 3%, but she's claiming 100 million. She's not. What happened is because she only had 3%, that's discounted literally by about 40%. And then for Jay-Z owning 86%, he actually gets about a 40% premium called the majority premium. When you put those numbers together, that's literally about an 80% differential between how much Jay-Z should get and she should get. What was the difference between what she said she was offered, 1 million, and what she thought it was worth, 9 million? 8 million. 8 million. Hit that like, guys. 8 million. In other words, because of the discount, because she only owned 3%, that discount is, if it was worth that 9 million, it's actually less than that because it's discounted by 40% plus Jay-Z gets a 40% premium, blah, blah, blah. That's how the numbers came about. Further, for her to now say she's owed 100 to 200 million, I don't know how you come up with that calculation when the company itself wouldn't be worth that. So if she's owed that 3%, so would all of the celebrities that have the 3% shares, right? So then, and that's 15 of them. So all y'all, 15 times 100 million, 150 million, there's no way. So here is what title is allegedly worth now. Basically, it says its valuation was approximately 3.775 million. There was a remaining 20%, it was 15% stake that is held by co-owner artists, including her. So in other words, with that breakdown and with the valuation, the whole company is still only worth about 300 million. If it's worth the same as 2021, it's not. It's not. How do we know it's not? Because all of the little shareholders of Tidal literally got together and sued Tidal. They sued Tidal. They did a lawsuit that was basically breach of fiduciary duties. In other words, they said, Your Honor, this was such a dumb deal. This was such a bad deal that they had to have breached something. They had to have violated a law or a rule, Your Honor, to do such a dumb deal. They didn't do their due diligence, etc. So literally the shareholders sued Tidal, the shareholders of Block, which owns Square and different payment systems. They went and they sued because they said buying Tidal is such a dumb idea because it lost so much money. That lawsuit was just dismissed by a judge because the judge was saying you have to first show that you asked the board of directors to sue on your behalf and that you asked them and that either was frivolous or they said they wouldn't. They couldn't show that. It was dismissed on somewhat of a technicality. But the point is, it's not worth, it sure as heck isn't worth the $3 million that was purchased. Otherwise, the shareholders wouldn't have sued them. The shareholders are actually claiming it's only worth like 100 some million. And long and the short of it is, Nicki, baby, sell your little 3% and go on, honey. He was offering you $1 million. And I know for her, $1 million is nothing, right? $1 million may not even be worth hiring a lawyer for her. I get you, boo. But yeah, that price has gone down. Nobody wants it. Maybe some of the bars will buy your shares, perhaps. But nobody wants stock and Tidal anymore. It's not publicly traded. So it's not like you can just continue to, track how it's doing. The shareholders are all mad. They want to get out. And I don't know anyone that actually subscribes to Tidal. Do y'all? So it says, okay, let me read it. Okay, if Jay-Z made a bad deal, my question is, do you think Jay-Z is a good businessman? No. I'm actually saying Jay-Z made a great deal. Jay-Z made a good deal getting the hell out of there when he got out. Because he was having behind the scenes issues with Tidal, with different entities within it. So he got out, he sold his shares. I think Jay-Z made a good deal. And then by him going to different artists and offering to buy their shares at what is clearly the minority share discount, that was smart. And T.I. and tiny reduction in damages. Yeah, I could talk about that. I'll leave that to the end. I see that comment there. I'll leave that to the end. So anyway, that's Jay-Z. That's the Jay-Z and that's the Nicki Minaj scenario. Now, Jay-Z and this baby, y'all have pestered me Y'all want me to talk about this little boy, bless his heart, Ramir. Poor Ramir. Poor Ramir. I'm going to put him on the screen. Poor baby. All right. Jay-Z. All right. This is Jay-Z's alleged son, Ramir Satherwhite. So Ramir is alleging that Jay-Z is his dad and that effectively Jay-Z has been dodging service, dodging actually litigating this case in the courts because Jay-Z wants to hide the fact that he was with his mother. Now, he was not with, if this happened, there is no overlap. There's no cheating with Beyonce. That's not the issue. But instead, what may have happened is that the woman would have been 16 at the time and Jay-Z would have been 22. So here's the deal. Somebody said that. No, somebody's like, that is Jay-Z's nose. I hear a lot of people say that. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me say this real quick about Nicki, going back to it. The Nicki Minaj scenario. With Nicki, first of all, if somebody owes me $200 million, you better believe I'm suing. But Nicki better hurry it up because number one, it appears that the statute of limitations has already passed. If it is based on Delaware law, because Tidal was initially a Delaware corporation, and most shareholder disputes are going to be based on wherever your company's incorporated, that passed. 2021 was the deal. That would have expired in 24, 3 years. But if the statute of limitations is based on New York law, she may still have some time. There are certain circumstances where it's 6 years, other where it's 3 years. Most shareholder stuff, even in New York, is 3 years. So the bottom line is, I think Nicki Minaj is talking about it, but there's not really anything that can be done because I think she waited too late. And more importantly, the numbers don't show that anything is owed to her, and she continues to have the shares. So you don't get to sue and say, you owe me monies for shares that I still have. Bookie, that's like saying, oh, you owe me money. I lost money on buying this car, but I still drive around in the car every day. No, Bookie, you can't do that. Can't do that. Okay, let's see. So somebody said that boy looks like Usher. So heading back, this is allegedly Jay-Z and Jay-Z's love child, Ramir. Now, this goes all the way back to like 2010. So allegedly, Ramir's mom and Jay-Z, they had met when she was 16, Jay-Z was 22. There's no indication that Jay-Z knew she was 16, if it in fact happened, and that he met her at some place in Philly, her and her homegirl, and that him and his boy basically knocked her down on the first night, allegedly. And that when the young little boy was around 8, he was informed by his mother that Jay-Z is his real dad. After he knocked her down on that one night, allegedly, she never saw him again. She didn't see him again until he became famous. She's looking at the TV and she's like, oh my God, that's that guy that I did it to. That's that guy that I did it to. Hold on. Wait a minute. Nursing Game is saying Mr. Petty has Nicki's brain fried. I do believe, we're talking about Nicki, y'all. I believe that when you have a guy like that, you got to be really careful that he's not leading you in the wrong direction. Because first of all, I know you don't know anything about stocks and stuff, but the concern is going to be that he could be one of those guys that makes you feel like everybody's trying to do you wrong. Everybody's trying to take advantage of you. I'm all you got. I'm the only one you trust. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Because I've had girlfriends who have dated guys like that, and their whole goal was to ostracize you from your other friends and family so that you only listen to them in the dumb stuff and the dumb suggestions that they have. So I don't know enough about Mr. Petty to say for sure, but it sure seems like, especially from the more recent way that Nicki has been feeling very much like all these people are trying to do her wrong at the same time, that someone could be in her ear. All right, let me add that. All right, hit that like button, guys. We only have 177 likes and we've got over 400 in the chat. All right. So going back to Ramir, this is Ramir here. His mom had a one-night stand with Jay-Z. She hadn't seen him again. She doesn't see him until he's famous. And then allegedly at that point, she then tries to begin the process to establish that he was in fact Ramir's dad. Here's what's interesting though. Ramir had another man on his birth certificate. It was another man that was his mother was engaged to. I don't think she was married to him, just engaged. Let me just double check that. Yeah, that his mom was engaged to. And in that situation, as a result, his birth certificate had that other man. And then it wasn't until 2011, it was that man then took some type of paternity test, and it was confirmed that man is not his father, and therefore that man's name was removed. So basically, at the start of this, it appears that someone else's name was on Polo Ramirez's birth certificate. I'm gonna just double check that. It was, yeah. There we go. That his father. Yep. So we'll see. Now, the lawsuits have gone back and forth, though, in this case for a really long time. So here's just like a summary of that timeline so that you're aware. And then we just gonna bring it all up into today. So Ramirez is now 31 years old. It was alleged that he was conceived in 1992. And there has been this public battle because Jay-Z has refused to take the paternity test. Now, many people are saying, well, he's refusing because he could be the father. That absolutely could be. It could be that he doesn't want to be found to be the father. He doesn't want anyone to know that at 22, he was with a 16-year-old. That could be. But I also think, especially now in light of all these Diddy cases that have come out, that a large reason he may not want to do this is because it could open the floodgates. In other words, if he can be forced in this instance to take a paternity test, what's to keep him from being forced to do it every other time a woman claims that she fathered their 30-year-old, 20-year-old, 40-year-old, whatever, not 40-year-old, but their big grown child? And the question could be nothing. We now saw with Diddy, he settled with Cassie, all these other lawsuits came out. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong, but I am saying I believe a large part of this is his team is saying no because of the concern that other people are going to try too, either way it goes. Now, I want to give you the timeline as well. It says it was in 1992 that they met. They allegedly had protected sex, but the condom broke. As a result, the mom was Wanda. Miss Wanda fought to get a paternity test until she passed away in 2019. She passed away at only 43 for a paternity test. Now, so the question is, why weren't they able to get the test before? Well, the reason was there were a lot of, arguably it was technicalities, but the main issue was that they were pursuing it under New Jersey law. They had all these different New Jersey lawsuits. Well, in New Jersey law, under New Jersey law, you got to do it before the kid turns 18. And this progressed for so long. I think at one point it was, there was a notarized affidavit in 2015. So he definitely would have been over. Yeah, he would have been over 23 in 2015. Yeah, so he was definitely over the age, as in he was too old for that law in New Jersey, or at least the statute of limitations. Hold on, let me pull that up. Oh, wait. Make sure I'm saying it right. Hold on. I always get my New Jersey. Yes, no. New Jersey is, Pennsylvania is 18, but New Jersey is New Jersey is 23. So it extended past the time he was 23. But more importantly, Jay-Z kept arguing, I don't live in New Jersey. New Jersey doesn't have jurisdiction, because you do have to bring it wherever the dad lives. Now, he wasn't arguing, yes, you do. Yes, you do live in New Jersey. Here's just a little important fact that non-lawyers don't necessarily get. He's arguing left and right that the reason it should be New Jersey is because Jay-Z owns properties there. That's not good enough. Your residence as a person is wherever you pay your taxes to, wherever you have your driver's license to. It's all supposed to be the same place. Stay with me here, I promise. Stay with me here. So for New Jersey ultimately was not the place of his residence. I don't know if it was California or New York, whichever the case, that was incorrect. But here's the other thing. You don't have to, it doesn't necessarily, if you can't figure out where they live, you can also use other jurisdictions and you can personally serve him. So if he's able to personally serve him, sometimes that opens it up. You can also do it where the child lives, him. As long as he's under 18. The biggest problem is they waited until he was over 18 in states that cap it at 18. And they waited in New Jersey till he was over 23, despite it being capped at 23. So what is he doing now, guys? Bless his little heart. When his mom passed, he was then cared for by his aunt or godmother. And she also tried to pursue this. What they're claiming is that Jay-Z had this inside track with the government and attorneys and all this stuff. And that as a result, that's why his case kept getting dismissed. I'm going to have to say that's not true. There is a specific jurisdiction. And here's a fun fact. This is why you guys hire me, call me, whatever. Don't forget, you can always reach me at SimoneRedwine.com. This is my website. Click Book Simone and hire me. Here we go, for a consult. 30-minute consult starts at $200. But here's the thing. If you are having trouble, if you're having trouble figuring out where someone is a residence of, it's real easy. Jay-Z always has some type of pending litigation, pending lawsuit. So you can always pull up an active lawsuit that he's actively represented in, and it'll have where his residence is in that lawsuit. Pull that, it'll give you the city, state, and then that's where you need to pursue. He didn't do that. Well, now he's got this lawsuit going in California, and he recently filed it. So that's in part how come Jay-Z's back in the news and back in the media with that. Here's the gist of it. This man is suing for everything under the sun. I'm going to put a little bit of it on the screen. Somebody said, we already know Roc Nation does illegal stuff. Look at what Damore claimed, the daughter, Desiree's daughter, claimed against him. Yeah, that lawsuit was weird. Damore is the daughter of one of Roc Nation's executives who was claiming that her mother unlawfully had her committed for weeks, despite there being nothing wrong with her. Here specifically, okay, it says, you must not have watched Ramirez interviews because clearly they have been fighting it since he was younger, before his mom passed away as well. His mom was 15. You're saying a lot of stuff that's not correct. Thank you. Well, no, the first lawsuit would have been in 2010, actually, from the records. And so 2010, if he's 31 now, let's do that math. That would have been 15 years ago. So yeah, he would have been a minor then. But what I'm saying is, even though it started, the New Jersey litigation started when he was a minor, but the bigger issue is that Jay-Z's position is, I don't live in New Jersey. You can't sue me in New Jersey. This is the wrong state. And so, and the state agreed. The state of New Jersey agreed this is the wrong state, so much so that they also entered into what's called a protective order. So ultimately, they told, because they would dismiss it, and then Ramirez's family would refile the lawsuit in New Jersey. So ultimately, Jay-Z received what's called a protective order in 2022, I believe it was, that banned them from refiling in New Jersey. Because the courts were like, hey, we told you before, New Jersey is not the proper place. Jay-Z does not reside here. You're going to have to file it elsewhere. As a result of all these filings, so there was one that his mother started while she was alive. Then his godmother helped to pursue it, etc. It racked up all these attorney's fees. So it's really messed up. Is Jay-Z's lawyers, when they won dismissal of their motion, they won lawsuits for their lawyers' fees. As a result, his godmother was unable to sell her house. She had a buyer. She had a deal. They were supposed to close for her to sell that house. She has apparently more than one property. But there's these liens, these stupid liens. And that's why I tell people, if someone owes you money, don't give up, especially if they are a property owner, because you can do this. So what happened is, because it attached that lien, however much these attorney's fees, so let's say they're $200,000, that would mean the first $200,000 from the sale of that home would go to Jay-Z's pocket, not his godmother. So in turn, part of this current lawsuit is Ramir seeking to remove any liens and anything that is encumbering properties that were left to him, given to him, or that are his godmother's. So either his or his godmother's, because he can't do anything with the real estate. Could you imagine? And this is East Coast real estate, right? So it's worth a lot. It is worth a lot. It says, I wonder in 2025, can someone cheat the paternity test? Because in the early 2000s, I know and saw someone experience it. It could be. It could be. So yeah, Dewan, tell me if there's something else that I missed. because I'm saying the same thing. I just don't know when you hopped in on this story. But it is true. You're right that the mom started before she passed. That is correct. The mother she was 16. She wasn't 15. And that they started this process, but again, it was the wrong state. Fast forward, now he is pursuing things in California. Here's the tea and why it's relevant today. This is a newer lawsuit. This lawsuit was filed in May. I'm going to share a piece of it with you. This lawsuit was filed in May. Lord have mercy. Here we go. Oh no. And I want you to see. Here we go. It's in my Adobe. I want you to see what he's filed this lawsuit on his own now. Bless his heart. There we go. So this should share. Hold on. I want to make sure you guys can see this. I can't imagine the pain of just wanting to confirm whether someone is your parent and not being able to do so. That's got to be excruciating. All right, that ain't working. Hold on. We'll do it this way. Add it here. It is. But I also want to be very clear with you. Many people don't realize that his bottom line request is totally valid. You are able to, in many states, including California, that's where he is now filed, you are able to ask the court to give you a paternity test, even if you are grown. So it's actually great that he's now pursuing it in California because they don't have the same obstacles that they have in other states. Here's the law, in case anyone wants to know. I want to make sure you understand this is what you have to show in order to be able to, as a grown person, have who you believe to be your father paternity tested. And I broke down the case of Jerry Jones. The same similar thing happened with Jerry Jones. It was a girl, she was 25. He had actually left her a trust fund under the rules that she could never, ever seek to confirm paternity. But her mother signed it. Not her mother signed it. So she went to court to see if the court could force him to do a paternity test. And the answer was yes. They went all the way down until the eve of trial. And at the eve of trial, that's how much this man did not want people to know that he was the pappy, that they were able to, that they ultimately settled. So I think he admitted like, yeah, I'm the dad. And that's what it is. All right. So here's what has to be. I'm sorry. What the hell? I just had it. Here's what has to be shown. Basically, let me put it right back. I'm sorry. It literally was just up. I'm so pissed. All right. It varies by state. Okay. Basically, you have to, obviously you can't get consent here. So where there's not consent, you have to show that there is a plausible and probable basis to believe that this person was your dad. In this instance, before his mom passed away, she drafted an affidavit that outlined she was with Jay-Z one time, the time frame coincides with when he was born. And that subsequently there was a man in his life that he knew to be his father. I think he found out when he was around 8 that that man was not actually his birth father. And that man did sign the birth certificate. Now, there are situations where someone will have an active father. Where there's that active father, of course, that complicates things. But here, where there is not, you just have to raise probable grounds, just meaning that it's likely 51%, that there's a perhaps 51% chance that this man did it to my mama, and therefore you can file. Now, he can't get child support. It's too late for that. It's too late for that everywhere. So he keeps telling everyone, I'm not even trying to go for child support. He's saying, all I want, there we go. He's saying, all I want is to know who my dad is. But there's a catch. In this lawsuit, he kind of is going for child support. What he's arguing is that Jay-Z did all this legal finagling and filed these motions and did all this stuff that in turn robbed him of child support because it drew out litigation for so long that he was never able to get the child support that was due to him. Those are his arguments. But the weirdest thing of this lawsuit He's not actually asking for a paternity test. I'm going to hop right to that page. Let's just get right to it. I want you to see that page. There it is. This is what he is asking for. Prayer for relief. Sorry. And I'm going to put it big up here because my prayer for relief. What he's asking for is he wants damages in an amount proven at trial for his emotional distress, reputational harm, basically people thinking he's crazy, loss of financial support. Y'all, that's the child support. Out-of-pocket legal and litigation expenses. You're not entitled to litigation expenses for something like this unless there's a statute that provides it. I don't believe that's applicable here. I could be wrong, but he probably won't get those legal expenses. He is pro se as well. He's doing this all by himself. He's also asking for restitution and what's called disgorgement of all unjust gains retained by defendant as a result of his wrongful conduct. In other words, to disgorge money, he got to keep what would have been child support. He should have to give it up, is what he's asking for. He also wants punitive damages. Punitive damages are when you do something deliberately, when it's willful, malicious, blah, blah, blah. Tasha K was ordered to pay punitive damages because she intentionally kept posting, allowed the video to stay up that lied and said Cardi B had certain diseases and stuff she didn't have. He's also asking that all the judgments, liens, sealing orders, and other court actions obtained through fraud are null. Because throughout this process, whenever they would have those hearings in New Jersey that would dismiss his case, Jay-Z's lawyers would then immediately file to have it sealed. That's not, okay, I don't want you guys to think that that is like, oh, that means that they're doing something unscrupulous. For family law cases, that's actually normal. And that's because they don't want kids' business to be out there, or they don't want kids to necessarily see grown folks fighting. So that's not initially weird. But what struck me with this is he's not asking for a paternity test. Y'all see this? Y'all see this? So now he's done with finding out if Jay is his dad. Is that he just wants to know him. He just wants to know him to pay damages and mental health issues he has caused. Got it. Says this young man just needs to go to law school and go on with his life. All right. He's also asking for equitable relief. It says to restore plaintiff to the position he would have occupied, but for Jay-Z's unlawful conduct. That includes remedies like financial, reputation, and procedural. I don't know how equity would do that. Equitable relief is like, I don't know, if someone has a house and that you bought and like, or that you're living in, I don't know. Equitable relief is like where you're basically asking a judge to keep the status quo or to fix something by forcing someone to do something other than paying money. That's not applicable here. He's also asking for reasonable legal expenses, which I don't think he's entitled to under the law, and pre-judgment and post-judgment interest, and any other relief that the court deems proper and equitable under the circumstances. But number one, he was not asking for a paternity test. So no, it's not been confirmed that Jay-Z was the father. And I also want to confirm, this is very important, because the stories seem to be implying that it was saying that this lawsuit has been given the green light to go ahead. What happened is initially, Ramir sought to get a default judgment against Jay-Z because he didn't respond. What the judge ruled is that Jay-Z has to respond, that they're not going to dismiss and do a default judgment against Jay-Z and automatically make him the winner. They're giving him until the 18th to respond. And in doing that, yeah, these are different allegations. And in doing that, this thing is going to keep going. He's by himself and it's in federal court, y'all. And I have to tell you, federal court is extremely complicated to handle, especially by yourself. But all of the grounds for his lawsuit, there's things like deceit by concealment. That's like, but it's all based on him concealing or not telling the truth about his addresses over the years and therefore preventing the lawsuit. This lawsuit is going to be kicked out of court faster than a whore in church. Sorry. Well, my church lets whores in because I know a few, but this lawsuit is going to be kicked out of federal court pretty quickly. He's also saying there was abusive process. He's claiming intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligent infliction. Infliction of emotional distress is where someone has a duty to you in some capacity, and then they breach that duty by basically effing with you, doing things that create pain, suffering, emotional stress, and trauma. Here, everything is based on him arguing that Jay-Z was not telling the truth about his true residence, and that the state where he was actually a resident, he lied about it, and that prolonged the lawsuit. That doesn't give rise to emotional distress under the law. It doesn't, especially as I mentioned to you, the solution was real simple. Throughout this time, Jay-Z had multiple lawsuits. All they had to do is find out where are some of these successfully prosecuted lawsuits being handled, where he's a defendant, and bring the lawsuit there. That would have prevented all this pain and suffering. All this, he's claiming anxiety, humiliation, shame, loss of sleep. Remember, nowhere in here is he asking for a paternity test. And it's saying that, as him being the biological father, that Jay-Z owed him a duty. The problem is they have not confirmed he's the father. And your dad doesn't owe you this duty under the law to not drag you through a bunch of hearings in court. That's really not a thing. It's not a thing. Somebody said even Busby doesn't want this case. Yo, that is a great point. I was wondering, because this guy has been pro se for a really long time. When you see that and it's against a big time celebrity, it's one of two reasons. The facts are fishy, and or the client may be a client from hell. So it says, stop the cap. Raymir has already had a paternity test. This man, his mom, and godmother have been fighting the case. He has not had a paternity test. He has requested a paternity test. The whole basis of this lawsuit is that Jay-Z has not had to submit to a paternity test and is using legal maneuvers to get out of it. So I have done my research. You tell me, you guys, because the problem is you guys are not reading the actual court documents. You're going to blogs, some of which are probably created by AI. That's your mother's godmother's fault for all these lawsuits filing frivolously. And here's the thing, they had an attorney at one point. The lawsuits that were filed in New Jersey family court, etc., those were not pro se all of this time. I would say the same thing. Go ahead and do the test. Even if you do it confidentially, do the test, let him move on. I firmly believe, so why the legal maneuvers? So I said this earlier, but I believe the issue is Jay-Z's legal team is probably concerned that if he agrees to this paternity test, a whole bunch of other people are going to come out of the woodworks and want one too. And that's a legitimate concern for celebrities across the board. And those are one of the things that courts have to balance. They have to balance, all right, the potential dad's right to privacy versus the child's legitimate right to confirm whether or not you're the dad. And honestly, under these facts, I'm going to say this, hear me and hear me clearly. Simone, is there a legal reason he didn't request a paternity test? Here, I don't know why. Let me confirm. Hold on. I'm going to confirm because this is a California lawsuit. And from what I read, California's statute of limitations has not expired. So my only guess as to why he has not in this lawsuit asked for a paternity test is either he's concerned about the results or he might be concerned that this lawsuit too would get kicked out. Let's see, what is California statute of limitations for an adult to request a paternity test to their parent, to their dad? Oh, and this goes for girls too, like women, like if you were adopted out and stuff like that, you as a grown person can ask for a paternity test as well. In California, an adult can request a court-ordered paternity test, and there's no fixed statute of limitations. It's based purely on the child's age or adult status. Courts allow children to initiate proceedings well after turning 18. Yes. Let me see. Hold on. So listen, I'm doing the story because I understand that you guys are like, I'm leaving things out. And I'm doing the story because I read over the documents and there's a lot of misinformation. So number one, this is what he has to prove. And I think back when his mom was alive, back when he was not yet 18, but they were filing these different motions in New Jersey court, it appeared that he had evidence and information sufficient to be able to get Jay-Z to do a paternity test if he was in the right jurisdiction. If the jurisdiction had been correct, I don't see how a court would have said no. Specifically, he has to just show, number one, there is a reasonable basis to believe Jay-Z is a biological dad. You don't need, quote, proof up front. You just have to show a reasonable basis. Now, back in the day, one of the arguments that Jay-Z's team, it's my understanding that they made, was that someone else was on the boy's birth certificate. And that was true, but then that person had then been removed when it was confirmed he was not the father. So the person that was on the birth certificate, they actually tested him. By they, the mom, the aunt, they went and had that guy tested just to prove and to be able to show to the court, hey guys, this guy isn't the issue. Please make Jay-Z take the test. So number one, there has to be a reasonable basis to believe the man is their biological father. Here, that basis is the affidavit that the mom signed. Now, of course, Jay-Z's legal team is going to say it's all hearsay. It's solely her. It's self-serving. She's the only one that's confirming this information. But she had a homegirl that was with her as well. And then number two, you have to establish that paternity is in the best interest of justice. So whether or not it would disrupt any existing legal relationships, the answer is no. He does not have a father. And why you're seeking paternity now. So if it's for medical reasons, emotional closure, inheritance rights, even if it's for him to get like his share of whatever Jay-Z may have, those are actually under the law legitimate reasons. Another thing to consider is whether the alleged dad acted as a father in any way. And here, what I would argue, if I represented the mother, I would say, Your Honor, all this legal wrangling from Jay-Z's side, the motion practice, all of that stuff, it's simply because he does not want this court to confirm what we already know, allegedly, which is that Jay-Z was with this 16-year-old woman, including, it was alleged that when she first reached out to Jay-Z's team, stating that she believed that he was the father of her child, they were having communications with her. They were talking with her. It was not allegedly until they had did the math and realized that meant she would have been 16, that all of a sudden all bets were off, no conversations to be had. Okay. And then third, you have to show that there's no binding legal paternity established with anyone else. They've established that. And that it's timely. Here, under California law, it's timely. There's no issue there because there is no other father. But as an adult with no other father, there is no statute of limitations in California. So what do you guys think? Do you think, it says, I would love to interview him and his godmother and let them give me, I would love to. If anyone has his contact information, DM it to me. I would be happy to reach out. If Jay-Z would just take that, yeah, take it. I almost wonder, like, does Jay-Z have any other siblings or anything? Like, could he do one with a sibling? Like, or if Jay-Z had like a loved one, you know, who was a sibling, I don't know, a first cousin. These tests have gotten really, really good. It says, if anyone wants to ask me, or I wonder, and this would be a long shot, you know how on the crime shows, they would follow around people when they want their DNA and like get their straw and this, that. I wonder if he could do that and then get it run. I bet he could. I bet he could. Ooh, we got to get Jay-Z's straw, y'all. It says, if anyone wants to ask me anything, make sure you tag my name. But if you want to come with negativity, because I said my own opinion, do not ask. Okay, Tia said, don't come with her with nothing negative. All right, Foxy Brown was a minor too. Ooh, if Jay-Z would just take the test, then we know. Just take the test if you have nothing to hide. I would agree. Or at least, here, what about this? Couldn't he take an ancestry test? So he could, but that only works if Jay-Z has taken an ancestry test or Jay-Z's people. You can absolutely do that. Jay-Z's mom could certainly take the test. So if Jay-Z's mom, Jay-Z's close relatives have taken ancestry and it's in that database, that absolutely could help. Did this go to the Supreme Court? It went to the Supreme Court of New Jersey and it was found in favor of Jay-Z. That's how he got those lawyers' fees. There's no Supreme Court for all of this. Well, it went to the Supreme Court of New Jersey, not the United States. He has a daughter who we bought a mansion. Oh, that's another thing. If he has a love child, some grown love child, he could get together potentially with that love child and they could try and do a DNA test that would give an indication of the likelihood that they have the same dad. Siblings actually are really good for that. I have a friend that owns a DNA testing lab. I have to ask her if she could help. But if he's able to do that with any of the alleged love children, then that also would help. And that would strengthen any lawsuit that he were to file to say, hey, judge, force this DNA test. I have no idea why in this current lawsuit, he's not asking for a DNA test. Oh, it says he tried to do a DNA with the sister, but she stopped talking to him. Oh, once he bought her a house. Ooh. The dodging it just makes him look like, yeah. Yeah, I think if I were Jay-Z's attorney, just to kind of shut it all up, I might just say, why don't we agree confidentially to do this DNA testing, do it confidentially, and then move on, especially if I didn't think that I was going to be the dad. Because if the issue, think of it this way, if Jay-Z's legal teams and Jay-Z's real legal issue is that they're concerned that by going through this and doing the test, a bunch of other people are going to start hitting him up and asking him for tests too. I would think the way to handle it would be confidentially, sign NDAs, all that. No one can acknowledge it. Take the test, prove it's not yours, and go about your business. Then no one has to know you even did it. What power does the judge have in the situation? And see, California that's like the hippie court of all courts. California, a judge absolutely has the power to order the paternity test. But what's different is in this lawsuit, again, he's not asking for a paternity test. So it has to at least be a lawsuit that is demanding a paternity test. Here, instead, what he's demanding is pain and suffering for all of the years where Jay-Z was filing motions, winning the motions based on allegedly it being the wrong jurisdictions. And it was multiple states. It was not just New Jersey. It was also Pennsylvania, just to be clear. Pennsylvania caps it at 18. And Pennsylvania claimed that they had waited too long. So I think it started in New Jersey. Then by the time it went to Pennsylvania, he was over 18 and blah, blah, blah. It says Jay-Z is playing with the Lord. It's not looking good. Yeah, that's what's so true. It says Ramir tried to do a sibling test with the girl, but she refused at the last minute. Yep. If he didn't know the lady, there's no reason to even take the test. Well, that's what Jay-Z's legal team is probably saying. I don't know her. Why would I take this test? Absolutely not. Hey, Jay Norwood, I have heard this. There was a lady who claimed she was his daughter, and they said he secretly bought her a house and a car. And I don't know how true this is, but I'll tell you what Jerry Jones did. With Jerry Jones, what he does is he creates trust funds for his kids, his little side babies. Okay, Jerry Jones got a home. He got this Mexican side baby. I think she was Mexican. I could be wrong. She's half something. But with a woman from Arkansas, he created a trust fund. And that trust fund specifically said, if you ever seek to confirm paternity, to prove paternity, you lose your trust fund. Guess what, guys? That provision is illegal. It's unlawful under the law. It's something called void for public policy, meaning it's kind of like if you had a contract to be a hooker and you went to court to enforce the contract. Some things the court says, we're not here to enforce those type of moral or immoral, whatever issues. So Jerry Jones' contract that says, if you ever fight to have me confirmed as your father, you lose your trust fund. That provision actually would be held invalid. And they went all the way to the last day of trial, and he settled with her because he knew it. He knew he was going to lose. They tried to do the sibling test. Okay, thank you. All right. But haven't we established that Jay-Z knew his mother? So not knowing her can't be a defense as to why Jay-Z won't take the test. I agree. Huge mistake to do this without a lawyer. He needs a lawyer, but he probably just can't find one. Here's usually why you can't find one. Because when you've gone to other lawyers, they've looked at the prior pleadings, they've looked at the evidence, they've looked at the facts, and we know that there's a reason you're not going to win. The only way we would not accept a case like that is, well, there's two main reasons. One, legally, we don't believe that you're going to win. Or two, if we don't think we could ever be compensated. Here, the grounds that he's seeking for compensation, he's never going to see a dime. They're not legitimate grounds. He's basically arguing malicious prosecution, but Jay-Z isn't prosecuting him. Jay-Z's the defendant. He's prosecuting the cases. He literally, one of the claims is malicious prosecution, and the others are all related to pain and suffering created by Jay-Z winning the prior procedural cases. So if they force Jay-Z to take the test, then if Jay-Z isn't proven to be the father, can he sue the state that made him take the test? No, there's nothing Jay-Z can do. Absolutely not. No, there's nothing Jay-Z can do. It's part of the legal process. See, and here's the thing. This is why I would love for these records to be unsealed. And there's a media source that actually went to court and tried to unseal the records pertaining to this case to, because it says to find out why the judges were not permitting the test to proceed. And what I've seen so far is that it was solely based on the incorrect venue. In other words, Jay-Z was not a Jersey resident. He needed to be sued elsewhere. But Ramirez's family kept saying, yes, he is. He owns property here. Just because you own property somewhere doesn't mean you're a resident of that state. Ramirez and his godmother have documents from previous filings that prove they were maliciously handled or denied. Well, especially if they were at any point pro se, I believe that that's the case. Courts treat pro se litigants like crap. Yeah, just take the test. So let me know, what would you want to do? Do you think Jay-Z should just take the test and get it over with? Or do you think it would be legitimate to say, I'm a celebrity. If I take this test, all kind of people are going to just harass me, make me take paternity tests for kids that I know are not mine. What would you do? Oh, and last but not least, someone asked. I'm going to cover this one. Just in. Okay, the Tiny and T.I. reduction in judgment. Oh. So that one pissed me off so much. Let me pull that up. You know what? Sorry, I just got a call from my co-counsel. I got to do that one tomorrow. I'm going to do a separate one on that because that one pissed me off because I felt like the infringement Tiny and T.I. face was so blatant. They had to have 3 different lawsuits to prove that they were entitled to a judgment. And then it went from 73 million down to, I believe it was 17, which seems patently unfair. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to do the whole story. I'll do that one tomorrow. That way I can actually show on the screen. When you see the infringement and how obvious it was ridiculous. And I'll explain to you why they changed the punitives down to just $1. All right, guys, I'm your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. Thanks for tuning in. Share this on Facebook, Twitter, wherever else. And thanks so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow.